Hello! There it is. Here. No, I have no idea how to use that.
Hi, everybody. This is Al Crichton with Waterfall Arts. I had a column called HiLo Art that ran every couple of weeks in the Free Press here in the Mid-Coast area. And because of the pandemic, it had to be canceled. Ad sales tanked. So I thought, well, we know people who have their shows in different galleries all around the state. And these galleries had to close because of the pandemic. So our art is either on the walls or never got on the walls. So they're like ghost ships out there sort of sailing around in need of attendance, in need of people to be to know that they're there. And we're going to talk with Hilary Irons, who is there. Hi, Hilary.
Hi.
So Hilary is a curator, a gallery director, and artist in Portland, Maine, and she has a studio in the Space Building. She's done a lot in her artistic career. Parsons, MFA at Yale, the recipient of several residencies, Skowhegan, Pace House, Val Colony, Hugh Oaks, very much a part of the Portland and the Maine art scene for years and years. She has a show right now at the Unity College Center for the Arts, a show called Spiral Staircase. And so tell us a little bit about your practice in general, Hilary. How do you come to do what you do, and where did you begin, and so forth?
Well, I'm a painter who really comes from a drawing background. So all of my early training was in pretty strict academic drawing. My first teacher was Sigmund Abeles, who is a well-known figurative artist who is just an incredible draftsman and a really wonderful teacher as well. When I was a child, my dad exchanged carpentry work for art lessons for me. So I was able to take lessons from this incredible atelier style master. In terms of the content of the work, I kind of consider myself a landscape painter primarily. To me, landscape painting is just the most communicative form that I can imagine, but it's also really fraught with danger in terms of becoming aestheticized or overly pretty or seeming not quite skillful enough to really get the point across. So I find that mitigating the message of the landscape that's the sort of thing that I've been doing over time to kind of fracture that reading of something that's simply meant to describe a space. I want the paintings to do what they need to do without the reinforcement of context or an artist statement. I'm gonna start with the piece Cotton House Fire. Can you see it on your screen?
I do, yeah.
Okay. This is a piece that I made as a sort of site-specific painting for the Pepperell Mill in Biddeford. When I was invited to submit a proposal, this was really exciting to me because I was already really kind of fascinated and compelled by textile mill culture in New England. For this piece, I was thinking a lot about this painting by Joseph Wright of Derby. He made a series of maybe 10 of these cottage on fire at night paintings. I was just really struck by this sort of illuminating moon that, traditionally indicates tranquility and transcendence, and then this like catastrophic giant fire pouring out of this tiny little cottage, all surrounded by a romantic landscape. The reason I thought about the cottage on fire so much is because I had seen these beautiful archival photographs of the cotton house burning down in Biddeford in 1915. So I really wanted to do something with this piece and kind of try to describe how the light, it doesn't look like a representation of fire. It looks like a crazy nebula or something. So to go back into this piece, I don't know, I was trying to kind of reproduce that nebula-like quality of light pouring out of the mill building. And then in the corner, I wanted to have a still life that looked like maybe like a little setup that somebody did, like a little shrine of some sort, kind of referring to the still life that you can find at the bottom of Caravaggio's painting, The Rest on the Flight into Egypt. It's a little research for people after the lecture. the painting's also, constructively, it's made from these different elements. There's a still life that I painted from observation. There's a landscape that I just invented. And there's the piece that's painted from the photograph. So it has this sort of, this really constructed appearance. It's a very artificial sort of painting. So these are my 3 newer paintings that were in the show that I did right before the show went up, or I guess I've been working on them for a few months. They refer to the last 3 chapters in the Quran, which are 3 very short chapters of revelation that are very poetic and have a certain like weird energy to them. They're also traditionally in Islam seen as a set of 3 that have a certain kind of power when they're put together in combination. So this piece is the last one that I completed, Al-Ikhlas, which means the unity. So there's this sort of idea in Islam, Tawhid, that means this unity of everything. That sense of kind of unity and continuity and oneness to me is really compelling and motivating to think about as a concept. The next piece, on Nas, this chapter is about mankind. So on Nas is mankind. And I was painting this piece really thinking about like how do I represent mankind in the painting. I don't want to have any figures in the work because I feel like in my work the figures tend to make it jump too quickly into the world of illustration, and it leaves out the sort of abstract dissonance that I'm after here. This is actually the first one I made, Afalak, which means the dawn or the daybreak. It talks about a very interesting concept in this chapter is that the reader is asking for protection from the evil that exists in the world, including the evil that has been created by God. Anyway, so all 3 of those chapters are like these tiny little stories that I feel, move from one to the next, and they carry this little miniature world inside of them. So I wanted to make a series of 3 illustrations, one for each surah of the end of the Quran. So this piece is called the Voyage of the Thresher. The Thresher was a submarine that sank off the coast of Kittery in the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard when my dad was a kid. And my dad is the owner of the property that this painting was based on. He has this big stack of propane tanks behind his house, and I always think about them as these sort of vessels that are floating through the chaos of the natural world and the built environment simultaneously. The big propane tank, I believe, has been empty for many years, so it's like this kind of thing that is settled down into the forest floor, and it's kind of surrounded by this stuff. The design element at the bottom is based on the pattern that veterans will wear on their hats. As you can see in this photograph, there's a weird little leaf. This is from a US submarine vet's World War II baseball cap that was made in 1994. So I was really just thinking, how can I refer to the people that were on the thresher indirectly? So that's what the sort of character of the submarine sailor is embodied by. When I was working on the piece, I called Henry, my dad, to ask him to tell me a little bit about his memories of the thresher, because I know that he knows a little bit about it. And he said, well, it's such a coincidence that you called me today, because this happens to be the anniversary of the sinking of the thresher. And it's in all the newspapers and everything talking about the thresher, which I hadn't realized. And Henry also told me that the previous day he had found out that the man that he bought his property from had lost his dad on the thresher. So I feel like there's this sort of, I love the way that coincidences can uh, kind of bracket and contextualize experience and instinct. And I think that the way that the submarine here is characterized and made into this kind of living thing, to me, really, like, that became really powerful when my dad told me that stuff. So it's like this ghost of it, like, it literally lives inside that propane tank. But
Well, the thresher is the primary ghost ship of our era.
yeah.
So actually, this is great. I mean, I think it's a wonderful thing. It reminds me of so many backyards that front on the woods and all around Maine and New Hampshire. And
Yeah.
everything. The fact that you've got this as a sort of honoring the people who went down with the thresher, and also your dad's sense of industry, and
Yeah.
the whole thing, it kind of is really interesting.
Thanks.
Yeah. And it's a ghost ship. My God, the thresher total, huh? Well,
Yeah.
so what a good way to wrap up the conversation today. Thank you so much, Hilary. This has been so much fun, and I really appreciate your, interest to do it.
I just am really grateful to you for visiting my show at Unity College, and for inviting me to be part of the ghost ship. I think I feel a lot of connection with that concept, and on a lot of different levels. So I hope that we're able to continue this conversation soon.
All right. Well, Hilary, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks, Al. Bye.
You bet. Bye-bye.
1, 2, 3.